Welcome back to the Smite Console League. Finch and Toley here as we move over to the PS4 side of things, and it's North America for the rest of the day. We've kind of been zooming so far over in European. They've been handling business. I wonder if North America is going to be able to do the same.
We have to see. You know, time will tell so far in the PS4 EU side of things. It was an interesting matchup coming out of them where Outcold Gaming had a good performance.
Yeah.
You know, back and forth action there as well. We'll see how these two teams stack against each other, though.
That's right. I think VGS gave them a good run for their money, but they couldn't quite win. But again, that's the past. Now we're taking a look at Big Money Esports going up against Benedict's Cavalry, another important set on the PS4 North American side, where things have been, I would say, a little bit more up in the air, it feels like. We can go ahead and take a look at those standings right now to see exactly where everyone's shaking up. That's perfect. They knew exactly what I was thinking in my head. It's Shrimp Gang who's up there at the top with Cyclone right behind him. But Big Money and Benedict's Cavalry both could use a win, though from those plus minuses, it looks like it's been a little bit closer for Big Money up till now.
This is going to be a big swing for both teams because, number one team will get their first win, and then another team is going to continue to lose. And that's going to be hurting one of them mentally, I think, for week number 4. It's important to come out here without any hidden strategies. Just give it your all. Make sure that whatever you were trying to kind of hide against the better teams and the best teams of their split, it's time to show it out now. You don't want to be 0-3 in week number 4.
No, I don't think that there's anything that you can afford to leave on the table in this matchup, especially not when you're both 0-2, right? Like you're alluding to. There, you clearly need to get those wins. You got to get up towards the top of those brackets as much as you can. I know we're still a big ways away, but these teams are playing towards making it to that invitational. Not everyone's going to be able to make it there in that mid scene of the Scream. So we'll see if they'll be able to, or which one of these teams has the better chance of trying to make it up to that top spot so they can make it to the invitational.
And Benedict's Cavalry specifically, I think they have a good nature about their teamwork, specifically at a house plan, right? Likes to play these defensive supports, the gaps, and it's very necessary when you're having a Poseidon in the mid lane like that.
That's right. This is a team that'll have some names that you're familiar with. ShaolinSSinS is here on this squad, like you already said. Houseplant here as well. And then Mystic Salmon, who we just went to. Good timing again in the Hunter role for this team. So certainly a team with some names that you know. Maybe not as much so on the other side with Big Money there, with names like Conviction, Xerxes, Shadows. I mean, these aren't names that you will remember as much, but these are all players that have been grinding, so I expect that we're going to be seeing some big performances from them, playing with that 0-2 chip on their shoulder. These are teams that are hungry for a win. And
against a team such as Cyclone, they were struggling a little bit, but they made it a relatively close game at the end of the day, or at least in the mid-game. They stretched it to beyond that 40-minute marker, which is impressive considering where Cyclone is currently in the standings.
Right. A team this far now, you wouldn't expect to be able to hang up against a team like Cyclone, which does have some of those names that you're probably a lot more familiar with on it. So I think just that side from them is strong. But also we saw it on that plus-minus, right? Clearly, Big Money have had some close sets up until this point. So it's hard to know which one of those you value a little bit more moving into this set.
That's right. Big Money going to have to do some big things in order for them to get this win here. And I think that they're going to need to lean a little bit on their mid-lane matchup. We've seen a little bit too much loose Freyas going through in that previous set.
Yeah, that's something I want to see as we move into the picks and bans here for game number 1, is these picks and bans getting cleaned up a little bit more. And maybe that's something we won't see right away here in game number 1. But in game number 2, I don't want to see any more of the same exact duo lane that just waxed you in game 1, right? Especially if there's no adjustment. So it's got to be one or the other. You either ban it out, or I need to see a cohesive strategy about how we're going to deal with it this time, because they'll just do it again.
It seems that Cavalry have done their homework, taking away a Giannis in the first pick slot immediately. It's a very interesting thing because Giannis brings a lot to the table between his utility and his surprising damage. A short cooldown, a little bit of burstiness, and this is something that's not very popular inside the Pro League, the Minor League, whatever have you. But when you're taking away the Giannis right now, you could tell that they're afraid of Big Money having that kind of mobility.
They absolutely are, as they take it away right away, followed by the Bacchus. They don't want to deal with this duo lane pressure, which it feels like Bacchus gets for free now that he has that chug, even without putting a point into it. Same can be said, though, for Freya, who's on the other side, been banned away, along with King Arthur. We already talked about it. Second pick feels like they have to ban away the King Arthur oftentimes. But that does leave Achilles, another aggressive warrior in his own right.
Hera's open, Vamana's open, Pele's open if Big Money things wanted to go for it, Bakasura even. But they're going for the Artio instead. I like it because it's a flex pick. You don't really reveal too many strategies this early on.
No, I don't think that they will by grabbing this. That could be going to a couple of places. ShaolinSSinS, though, is only going to one place. You know, put that man in the Hunter role so that he can get to the point where that Darkest of Night is too scary.
Unless your name is Zeros and you play him in the jungle back in Season 3.
Oh, would you want to do that now?
No.
Did you want to do it then? I don't even know. Well, I wouldn't argue with zeros, though. So he's a guy that
I mean,
knows
back
what's
then
going
you
on.
could probably argue with
Yeah,
zeros.
maybe not now,
Right now, no, you're not going to argue.
Zero knows the game pretty well. We'll trust him as we move back into Benedict's Cavalry side of the draft. They've got Hera and Erlang Shen, and that feels pretty good for your second and third pick. Another aggressive warrior to pair along with this mid-game to late-game monster in Hera. They should be able to secure some early pressure.
I'm a little surprised that Erlang Shen kind of fell out of favor.
Yeah,
He's
me
not
too.
Really bad at all.
He's
it's
good.
Just kind of,
I'm with you.
It's funny because, like, you know, a new month comes around and then a new kind of selection of gods. You know, somebody's going to play it in ranked or it's going to be revealed in a pro game, and then all of a sudden people realize, like, huh, this god is pretty good still.
This god's good still.
You know, it's pretty good still. It's pretty good.
Sometimes it comes out and just kind of jogs your memory. We're over 100 gods now, right?
Yeah.
So it's no surprise if maybe one or two you forget about a little bit as you have a lot to try and keep track of, especially in these situations where you have so much that you're trying to keep track of. And one thing you want to make sure you keep track of is a Bakasura that's come in now for Big Money Esports. Very scary if this can get off to a good start for them.
Like, just even thinking about the Chronos that came out of nowhere, right? Like, because of Ruined Forge Hammer specifically, right? Like, that enables Chronos to be good. But Bakasura, you know, being prioritized, Xbalanque being prioritized. These are, like, older gods that are still seeing a lot of light.
I was wondering what mid-mage that they were going to go to for Big Money. What were they going to put into the hands of Adaption? And it looks like it's going to be the Agni with the Poseidon and with the Discordia already banned out. It did narrow the pool some, but Guan Yu making it all the way down to being picked 4th on the side of Benedict's Cavalry. That feels very good. 3 warriors in this comp already.
It is aggressive, very aggressive. I think that it's going to be maybe an Achilles support with an Erlang Shen jungle. Guan Yu solo lane is my best guess. Now, the problem with going Guan Yu against this composition is that Artio has a cripple, Baka has a cripple, Agni stun is going to lock you down. So it's going to be difficult for Guan Yu if he gets controlled to get that dash heal combination that he's relying on in those late game team fights.
Pele comes in to round out the composition, so now where's everything going? They've already got the Bakasura here, so then likely they're moving one of these over to the solo lane. I imagine you move Pele over there. What are you thinking when you're looking at this one, Totally?
You could do a lot with this composition. It could be a Baka support even, honestly, if they really wanted to be aggressive with the invades. You can eat minion very frequently, so I wouldn't mind seeing either one of those two in the support. Stick the Artio, though, in the solo. Okay,
Artio over in the solo lane then. We'll see what it is that they want to do with that support spot. Benedict's Cavalry and Big Money Esports about to duke it out. Let's get it over to the casters.
Thank you very much, Finch and Tolly. Game 1 ready to go between these two squads. And it's going to be Achilles in the jungle for Benedict's Cavalry. Definitely a lot of frontline presence by way of warriors, and the 2 damage dealers are magical on Benedict's Cavalry. Do you think this is the 2 mage, 3 warrior composition has a lot of potential here, Taco?
Possibly. This just feels very awkward to me because in a sense it kind of feels like Benedict's Cavalry isn't really sure where their power spike is truly going to come about, because you see the Erlang in the support role, so you automatically assume, okay, you want something that's also going to be able to play very aggressively alongside of this Erlang, but then you see Chronos, because Mystic Salmon trying to not have a 4 physical composition, which again is something I also understand, but I'm just not really sold on the follow-up potential really being there for Benedict's Cavalry, at least not until like 30 minutes deep into this game, if it even goes that far.
It'll take some time for sure, but in the early game, their warriors might be able to carry that load. They won't have a lot of magical power, but certainly on the physical end, I mean, Achilles, Erlang Shen, these are gods that can really do quite a bit of damage in the early game.
I think I just have to see the gods in action over everything else right now, because Daniel Perez, Shaolin's going to be locked down in that solo lane for a while, so it's really only Daniel Perez and Houseplant that have much of an opportunity to try and look for that aggressive warrior front line. But because of the Pele, I'm just not really certain that that should be the direction.
Certainly early aggression there by Privative on the Pele. Looks like Nano Adaptation had to use a Purification Beads, but to pay off on a red buff invade. Privative pretty low, as Daniel Perez with a good stun and follow-up from Sternhawk was there. You're right, as much as this front line is really strong for Benedict Cavalry and is really warrior-based, Big Money Esports is really assassin-based. So who's the rock and who's the scissors in this instance? Which class really beats up on the other?
I would almost have to give it to Big Money Esports, largely because of the fact that I just think they have better ways to shred through protections from a warrior-heavy front line. You've got Bakasura with the Butcher Blades. That alone, I think, is going to cause a lot of issues as the team fights develop throughout the mid to late game stages of this match. And not only that, but Xerxes as well has a ton of lockdown potential on this Artio. When you toss in 3 warriors, you're not really getting much in terms of hard CC here from Benedict's Cavalry's composition. I think that they're relying a little bit too much on the Achilles Erlang setup being there, but those warriors have to be forward-facing to do that.
Xerxes putting good pressure on a Mystic Salmon in this duo lane. You're right, I think that the warriors do have the option to get Void Shields and the like and those up their damage and their protections up against these assassins, but I don't know if that's going to be enough. Though Shadows is playing Bakasura has true damage, so doesn't have to worry about protections too much, as Houseplant looking to defend his own purple buff. It's Big Money eSports gets their second Totem of Coup so far. Big rotation coming in, though, from Big Money. They don't want to let everybody know that they're here, but here's the blink in from Privative. Mystic Salmon, very low, but not low enough to fall for first blood. That did cost him his purification beads and should be still the purple buff. But to get away without dying there is a small victory.
At least it wasn't the first blood. It will be the start, though, of many to come purple buff invades, I feel, with the way that Big Money eSports were poised around that purple. It just felt like that was a call out that had been made ages ago, and like that had been their intention from the start, because Nano Adaption and Privative were already in position, it seemed, to close the distance. The first one would have been nice on a Mystic Salmon, but, you know, sometimes everything can't go according to plan.
This Pele selection, we've seen some players really go away from Pele, which doesn't get picked or banned a whole lot in the competitive scene these days, it feels like. In ranked, I'm still seeing Pele banned all the time. Do you think that she's still a premier pick in the jungle? Why do we see her in this game in particular?
I think Pele just gives another asset to the dive composition that Big Money eSports have sort of invested towards. When you have a Bakasura and a Pele, I think that that gives you 2 really unique forms of initiation, and also they're assassins, so you know that they're going to probably just be able to vomit all their damage in your face. And
literally,
so,
if you're Baka. If
you're Bakasura, yeah. And in Snadows' case, he is very literally doing so, but I also really like that the follow-up that they have for it is an Agni. It's Agni with the bombs, plenty of range, I think, to really punish anybody who gets a little bit too close from Benedict's Cavalry, because that's the other thing, too, with running 3 warriors. It's a little bit more melee-based. They don't really have much in the way of range outside of Sternhawk, because I don't even really count Chronos as much of a range mage.
And Hera doesn't have great range as a mage anyways. It's really just her 2, but that's slow moving and difficult to hit at a long range. Royal Assault is a pretty close range ability. So you're right, I think that the point that they're lacking some range is a good one. Some pings happening on this left-hand side, but I think Xerxes is really more interested in another purple buff invade. He's got a flank going on Houseplant. Cripple's there, so Node 72 transformations coming. Knock-up as well, that'll force the ultimate, but Houseplant's never going to get the heal. Privative hits him with the Volcanic Lightning, and that's first blood for Big Money eSports. Second blood coming shortly. Daniel Perez falls. The conviction, and the buffs will soon fall afterwards. A perfect invade from Big Money.
And it might not be just the purple buff that goes down this time. There's also a possibility that red could follow suit. Sternhawk right now on the run, though. Privative going to go ahead and continue to play aggressive here, and Sternhawk, he's just stuck between a rock and a hard place. That is way too easy of a cleanup for this Pele Agni to make, and Mystic Salmon now coming in from the backside, but there's really nothing more that could have been done in that situation. Sternhawk was just too deep in his own jungle. I mean, I don't even really know what to say there.
His backs between his tier 2 and his Phoenix. I think that's just the lack of mobility being shown by Hera.
Yeah, mostly a meme on my end. I'm definitely
right.
just kidding here, by the way. Someone's going to think I'm being serious.
I know,
though,
you're right. You're probably a good clarification. Privative would just, with the Blink and the Talarias, he's got plenty of movement speed and could catch up in that instance. And that really felt like Nano saying, hey, we can kill this guy. We can kill this guy. Come on. Privative was looking for red. He was still hanging around purple. He was kind of dragging his feet a little bit, but good job by whoever was the one really pushing that was a kill opportunity.
That just seemed so frustrating, though, to try and fight in from Benedict's point of view, because you're expecting the buff invade to happen, and you're expecting there's going to be a Pele and an Agni in the vicinity, but then the Darkest Night to completely shut off all communication, and that's where you just saw everybody kind of just freeze, and those Agni bombs were just living for it.
And the early taunt from Houseplant, he couldn't do it much earlier than that. I mean, he knew that he was in trouble right away, and even with that damage mitigation from 9turn's Blessing, still couldn't get his health above where it needed to be before that heal came out. That's really going to show you that power of the cripple that Xerxes has. Those entangling roots do quite a bit up against Erlang Shen. Now that's at the dual lane behind quite a bit as well. A level and support, 2 levels in ADC already.
Also, Benedict's Cavalry wasn't fully grouped up. Nice root from Xerxes. You're going to catch out Mystic Salmon for a moment. Poison Darts has connected, but 30% poke health, 30 to 40% roughly. And more importantly, though, that came right at the same time as this purple buff respawn.
Perfect timing. Xerxes really on his timers right now, and Houseplant might just be dead. Privative gonna blink in. Volcanic Lightning again withers the Houseplant. Privative has gotten 3 of the early 4 kills in this game. Daniel Perez is again here, but a little bit late. This time his Fatal Strike is enough to save his life, but not enough to get the purple, and another red buff invade is now waiting for Big Money.
But this is where things are already, I think, incredibly painful. A nice red buff confirmed, though, from Sternhawk. Looks like Argus might have managed to steal that one away from Big Money Esports, but Big Money, they don't really seem to mind because they're actually going for the big money right now with a super early Gold Fury pool.
As soon as that Hera ultimate is used, then who really cares? We're good to go. Straight towards Gold Fury. Daniel Perez made it close, but Gold Fury still on the red side. This is how you do it, right, Taco? I mean, you just get a lead and continue to push your invades. Now Snadows in the mid lane. Sternhawk doesn't have a whole lot of repercussion, but well-timed polymorph is enough to get Snadows off of him. The lack of movement speed right now really hurting him more than anything else.
Snadows already fulfilled his duty, though. All he had to do was rotate to zone that Hera away from whatever possible contention of the Gold Fury that might have transpired otherwise. And I think for Big Money, I mean, they're doing everything right so far, Aggro. They might not have been there to try and pressure that initial spawning of the purple buff from Benedict's Cavalry, but they just took it and ran. As soon as that first respawn came, they're there in position. I think that was another big thing on that secondary and even the third side that Benedict's Cavalry was trying to defend that purple buff. Their members weren't all grouped together like that from Big Money, so Big Money just having the numbers advantage.
And I really like the way that Big Money's also accentuating the way that they're playing the map very aggressively early on, specifically near the duo lane, with the way that they built so far. An early Bancroft's talent, they had that power spike, and now some aggression on the right-hand side. Darkest of Nights used, just in case, but blue buff still secured by Benedict's Cavalry. So no harm, no foul on the right side, except for the lack of Xbalanque ultimate now. But it's an early Bancroft's talent. It's Conviction getting boots before stacking items. They're building the way that they're going to play the map, and that is no coincidence they're having success because of it.
One more time, Big Money Esports looking for yet another purple buff invade. This would be their third attempt at one. Privative, though, looking to just focus out Sternhawk instead, and that burst damage is just unreal.
Fatal Strike just enough. Houseplant still trying to chase down the enemy jungler and provide some assistance, but won't do a whole lot. Red buff still went the way of Big Money Esports there. Privative was able to secure it, and another purple buff is going to go their way. Another kill in the jungle. I mean, Big Money is just consistently hitting this weak spot of Benedict's Cavalry.
I don't even think that the buffs really matter all that much to Big Money Esports. If anything, it's starting to feel more and more like they just want the kills from whoever decides to try and show face to contest on these buff invades. And right now, for having 3 warriors, they're looking like paper.
So what is the game plan then for Benedict's Cavalry? Do you stop trying to defend your reds? Do you just give those up so at least you're not dying?
I think they would have had to have done that after the secondary failed red buff defense, but at this stage, I almost feel like this is where the draft starts to work against you if you're on Benedict's Cavalry, because you drafted 3 warriors specifically for the intent, I think, of establishing an early game lead, and when that just doesn't happen, you're kind of just left with this, and it feels incredibly awful as a warrior, especially in the jungle, when you're trying to farm everything and you're competing with this Pele, because there's heavy mobility on the side of Pele. Privative also, I think, making the right choices with the Crusher and Blackthorn's Hammer pickup. So much health, and Benedict's Cavalry has been struggling enough with damage as is, so to have to even shred through even more, it just... I just feel like it's unrealistic right now for this team.
You can really rely on your base damage when you're this far ahead, 2 levels in the jungle. You don't really need it from your items necessarily. And again, right as this purple and red are starting to spawn, it's Conviction playing aggressive. Otherwise, he's been playing pretty passively in this lane. It's always on time. So Privative is here now at the purple because there's buff spawning. Knock up onto Houseplant. Houseplant is down. Argus comes with him, but Daniel Perez is going to be next one out. Xerxes gets the kill, but it was Privative's damage that got the job done. Nano still looking at the enemy mid laner, but ShaolinSSinS shows up for the first time. He seems to be making a difference, trying to put Benedict's Cavalry on the board with his Cavalry charge. He does just that, but now he's alone versus 3 members of Big Money Esports.
But Conviction a little bit too low to want to stick around. This Guan Yu rotation might have just been the saving grace that Benedict's Cavalry needed for their purple buff, but Mystic Salmon still has not felt comfortable enough joining the fray here. He's just been letting this Guan Yu play zone duty, and in all fairness, it looks like Shaolin has things covered, but I can't help but wonder what things might have looked like if Mystic Salmon or Sternhawk had reinitiated.
Red goes down. Snadows uses beads a little bit late. Regurgitate's already on cooldown as well. No, he uses it right now and gets those minions out. But red buff still went down in favor of Benedict's Cavalry and purple. Their first buffs in quite some time. Sternhawk, I don't know about that one. But at least they got the buffs this time around, right?
Method to the madness, perhaps? I'm not really sure what to say on that one. I mean, Sternhawk just looked like he was a little bit too far pushed up right there. Because let's be honest, Agra. I don't think the left side of the map belongs to Benedict's Cavalry any longer. This is all Big Money Esports territory, unless Shaolin has something to say about it. And I love seeing that rotation from the Guan Yu. I think that it was right on time and when his team needed him most, for sure. But you can already tell how restricting these first couple of invades have been for Benedict's Cavalry, because Big Money just has such a massive lead on 3 to 4 different members that even with the Guan Yu rotating in, Benedict's carries still don't feel comfortable with trying to pressure alongside of their solo laner.
Absolutely. It feels like Shaolin is the last thread that Benedict's Cavalry is holding on to try and put this game back together. And it's certainly possible. Only down 5,000 gold, and I say only, it's only 14 minutes in. But their late game is very impressive if they were to get there. Snadows uses Regurgitate. Houseplant low, but Privative looking elsewhere. Now he'll turn his attention back towards the enemy support, and immediately he goes down. 5-1-3 now for Big Money Esports jungler, and Oni Fury now on the table for the red side. Mystic Salmon has his ultimate available and his purification beads, but very little in the way of damage items, and looks like the Cavalry is not coming for this gold Fury. Oni goes down for Big Money.
And that's another thing that I've been noticing also. Privative trying to push her in onto this red buff yet again. Will be successful this time around. No more successful defenses for Benedict's Cavalry, but Daniel Perez, he was just looking for the escape, and now Mystic Salmon, that's the last place he probably wanted to rewind to.
Everyone right here, Snadows included, all the way from the solo lane, and Mystic Salmon has nowhere to go. Surrounded and grounded. Conviction gets his second. Doesn't even have all of his stacks on his Devourer's gauntlets yet, Taco, and he's still 2-0-6. That's how much fighting has been happening on his side of the map.
It hasn't even really been laning phase fighting either. It's all solely taken place in the jungle surrounding these buff invades. Big Money Esports just hitting Benedict's Cavalry where it hurts most, the experience department. They have just been deprived of so much map form from these consistent invades that even the times that they have been successful in defending that red buff, it's been at what cost? There's been either 1 or 2 members from Benedict's that'll get picked. There's also the fact that like 3 to 4 different people are splitting that same buff experience, and those 3 to 4 people are all behind in the same way.
Everyone on Benedict's Cavalry now behind, some worse than others. It's really in this duo lane that we're seeing the most damage done. Xerxes and Conviction up 3 to 4 levels over their opposition apiece. And these warriors that we were talking about doing the majority of the early game damage, it's Guan Yu's a warrior, yes, but he's definitely more late game focused. It's Erlang and it's Achilles you expect to do well in the early game. Well, they're bottom of the player damage charts, both of them on the bottom below even the Artio, so it's not been the start that the Cavalry needed.
The only time I've seen this Achilles and this Erlang is when they've been on the run. That's it. The only time we've seen their ultimates as well has been when they're on the run. Everything has been forced out defensively from Benedict. Wow. Just like Shaolin might get forced out of the Cavalry assault here if he's not careful.
Shell needed. Snadows all over him, level 18. Shaolin has his dash back up, still being very patiently. It's not until Volcanic Lightning's used that he hops on the horse, but he's going in. Pyromancer's already down, Big Money got that, and they might get the fight overwards as well. Easy damage onto the opposition. That forces Fatal Strike and Argus out from Benedict's Cavalry, and Privative's not going to let him go off the hook quite yet, still playing aggressively.
That was a really well-placed Argus, though. Definitely kept him safe for the moment. And this Regurgitate, though, Mystic Salmon, he'll find his way on out of there, but Daniel Perez just dead by association.
Xerxes looking for a little bit more. Two-man route coming up. Shaolin's there to help, and Sternhawk actually does knock down Privative, but now Shaolin, no dash, locked in that cripple field. Snadows gets his second, and this Bakasura that gets the free laning phase in the early game is really making him pay. Purification beads necessary, but it's still an easy double for Snadows underneath the tier 2. No one here to push this tower because Conviction's on the right side, but still the Cavalry needs the other Cavalry to come and help.
Xerxes starting to realize maybe the tower focus might be the right direction while Snadows makes quick work of that jungle. Oh, and by the way, Conviction is soloing the T2 and solo lane.
Argus might solo Nano here. Divine Shroud, just as it came up, was knocked down by Snadows, who quickly put an end to that aggressive part. Daniel Perez has his blink. This would be a big kill. He doesn't go for it, though. I feel like if you're level 13, you have to go for that, right?
You have to go for it,
Especially in Season 6, where we changed the way that you get the shutdown bonuses and how much gold and XP you get. That would have given him almost an entire level, I feel like.
Yeah, I think that was definitely a missed opportunity from Daniel Perez, and I think that came as a result of him being so psyched out of this match mentally, because Big Money Esports has such a commanding lead over Benedict's Cavalry right now. That's why we see the Achilles hesitating to go for the play. But in that situation, if you're 7 levels down and the person you're 7 levels down from is at 20% health, you just have to go for it. Especially on Achilles, you might get lucky with a Fatal Strike.
That's right. Even if he gets the chance to get the minion, maybe you've still got a shot. But now the level 20 Bakasura is still without a notch in the death column. Fire Giant's the call. It's only Shaolin here. He's going to go up onto the horse. Darkest of Nights happens, and Fire Giant goes the way of Benedict's Cavalry. ShaolinSSinS able to steal it away amongst everybody on Big Money Esports. I don't think that'll stop them from chasing, as there's the blink Volcanic Lightning. Daniel Perez still has Fatal Strike. He used it to get away. 9 turns Blessing used as well just to peel this Bakasura. But ShaolinSSinS, again, I called him the last thread of hope. Still seems to be apt to me. He's able to steal away the Fire Giant. Doing
everything in his power to try and keep Benedict's Cavalry in this game. And I love this also from Mystic Salmon. Knew that they didn't really have much of a chance anyway on contesting that Fire Giant. May as well split push, get some much needed farm as well. This Chronos now level 16 might be able to put out a little bit better damage during these team engagements. And more importantly, that Fire Giant still just bought time. But good lord, that should never happen if you were in Big Money Esports position.
So what is Big Money Esports supposed to do in that situation?
They just kill him. He's the only one there. You just murder him, and then he can't steal it with his ultimate. It's just unreal.
I think the problem is that he's on top of Fire Giant, so anything that's hitting him is also hitting the Fire Giant and getting it lower. I feel like you just reset in that spot. There's no way that Guan Yu kills a Fire Giant from 15% health by himself. So if you just walk away from it, and he's committed, now you just get to kill him afterwards,
but
right?
Shaolin was also like 30% health inside of that Fire Giant pit. And Big Money Esports was not at any risk, I don't think, of dying to the Fire Giant. They could have very easily killed the Guan Yu, confirmed the Fire Giant. And I do agree, they need to stop DPS from instant, but that was part of the problem. I'm pretty sure Conviction and Adaption were just focused on pushing out all their damage at once, thinking, well, there's no way this Guan Yu is actually going to steal it, right?
And then they're like, oh, it's so lucky. Well, yeah, it's kind of lucky, but it's only because you didn't do it.
Seriously lucky when, I mean, it doesn't matter if something's 99% guaranteed. Why take the 1% chance of losing it?
It's like it's snowing outside, and you open the door, and then you get snow inside your house, and you're like, God, that's so unlucky that I got snow inside my house. Well, why'd you open the door? Why didn't you just close it? Why didn't you just kill him? Regardless, we're still here with Big Money Esports having a massive lead. Houseplant pushing forward, and I don't think the rest of his team got the memo. He uses the shell. He'll get up that heal, but I don't think he'll get back to base the easy way. Snadows gets him with that regurgitate, and Snadows not done yet. Still pushing forward with that regurgitate. Now it's, who is that? Shaolin in the middle of everybody yet again. Still be able to push him back a little bit. A cursed Ankh comes out from Big Money Esports, but that isn't enough to take down Shaolin. It stops his healing for a little bit, but doesn't do any damage to him. Left tier 2 falls, but Phoenix still standing at least for the moment.
I almost feel like Big Money are just like playing an MMO right now, just like tearing down creep waves, except Benedict's Cavalry are the minions that they're killing over and over and over again.
And Shaolin's the only boss in sight, it feels like. Snadows bites off a little bit too much more than he can chew in the mid Phoenix. The left side Phoenix doesn't go down either. So Benedict's Cavalry able to repel the assault, at least for a few more minutes. 3 members still have Fire Giant, Taco. Can they do anything with that?
Well, Mystic Salmon, first and foremost, he's just trying to make sure he doesn't die.
How did he end up here?
That might be a little bit too far out of the question.
Sometimes you go, you know, salmon swim upstream. He just went a little upstream a little bit too fast. Well, I guess so. Somehow.
He knew what he was doing. He had it under control.
Sternhawk putting out some damage onto Xerxes, but not enough to bring down the level 16 Artio. No Obsidian Shard yet from Sternhawk means that his damage onto the tanks is negligible at best. The Soul Gem is a good item on certain gods. I don't know that I'd put it on Hera, necessarily.
I can't really say that I'm a fan, but I do respect the Divine Ruin.
Yes, necessary. Against Bakasura, who's going to be healing a decent amount with Eat Minion, doing Privative's passive and Xerxes healing, and the Bancroft's talent from Nano. I feel like the Divine Ruin was an absolute necessity. I'm surprised that Daniel Perez doesn't have a Brawler's Beat Stick on top of it.
I'm surprised that Daniel Perez has been able to afford items, period, with the way that this game has gone. It's actually incredible to me. I think that's why we actually see a 4th item hi-rez, because at this stage, this Achilles is probably just trying to figure out what is going to be my best DPS-based build with the goal that I have to give. And hi-rez is an incredibly cheap item. Getting that 50% boost on your in-hand to follow up off of an ability is also really nice. And 10% cooldown reduction. I mean, you can't really go wrong with that.
hi-rez is great, especially when you remember that Achilles 2 gives him percent power. You get a ton of it when you use it, and so you get to really boost that next hi-rez auto.
Might be 40% on that hi-rez auto.
It's quite a bit that you're getting regardless, and Achilles definitely accentuates that with his second ability. Xerxes and the rest of Big Money now positioning around a Fire Giant that they're hoping to secure this time around. And I imagine that in situations like what we saw in the last Fire Giant, they happen, but usually they don't happen twice in a row. Shaolin trying to stay alive, but will not get the opportunity. Too far forward this time. His damage dealer is far too far away. Houseplant finds a decent taunt. Good knockup coming from Argus. There's someone in execute range. Daniel Perez is looking for it, but it gets body blocked. Still finds the kill on a Privative, but it'll cost him his life. It's a 3-for-1, and Snadows looking to find the last 2 all by himself. Houseplant with a good knockup to buy his dual lane partner some time. And Fire Giant be damned. Let's just push towards these Phoenixes, which are now ripe for the taking for Big Money.
Houseplant and Mystic Salmon are still standing, but the problem is Chronos has very little mana to offer, and it's a Chronos. There's just not enough AoE to keep them away. Houseplant just getting focused out by the Bakasura, all the while oKonviction staying on that Phoenix.
Only a matter of time for Houseplant now. His dual lane partner falls. He falls shortly afterwards, and I believe the Titan is next on the list for Big Money. 23-3 in dominant fashion. Big Money take game 1.
Yeah, this was just so one-sided from the get-go. Shaolin coming out of the fountain hot with that Guan Yu ultimate, but just not enough to turn the bill this time around. And I can't even say that that was just Shaolin needing to rotate sooner to that purple buff. I just think that the composition that Benedict's drafted for ultimately was the main reason why this game was so dominant for,
I agree.
for them.
It was a composition that had good late game, but didn't have great comeback potential. And we saw that Houseplant just got crushed. I mean, no one watered it. It wasn't by Sun. There was nothing there for him. He got crushed on that Erlang Shen. We'll see what they change up as we head into game 2. But first, it's time for the desk.
Yeah, the houseplant wasn't properly nurtured. I get what you were doing there, Aggro. It's Finch and Toli here on the desk after a dominant game by Big Money Esports. And really, for me, Toli, that just started with Privative in the jungle on this Pele, constantly harassing the duo lane, running this early game.
And also the double assassin. It wasn't just Privative. It was also Snadows on that Bakasura solo lane. He was just so aggressive to the point that it made this Guan Yu look a little bit silly. Privative, though, no slouch in his own right, really showing the work of a Pele.
Yeah, and this was the Hera by her own Phoenix, by the way, in between her own Tier 2 and her own Phoenix this early on in the game. That was another problem for me. There wasn't enough mobility for her or peel to get away from this Pele once Privative got it rolling. He was able to pick basically whomever he wanted and make them his target, and there was no one to stop him. A 5-level disparity between him and the support.
That's what happens when you pick Hera. It's funny because they were the ones to ban away the Giannis themselves. Maybe if they were the ones to pick the Giannis, they could have gotten out of some of those situations that Privative put them into.
Yeah, Privative was able to do essentially whatever he wanted to, and it was a good thing that he did because it made that Erlang Shen support, the aggressive support that was picked up by Houseplant, irrelevant, right? You don't pick this Erlang Shen to be behind 3 levels. You don't pick anything to be behind 3 levels, but specifically you pick this warrior because you're able to get away with being ahead a little bit earlier on. You're able to manufacture leads and thrive off your base damage. He never got a chance to do that.
It was also a lot because of Xerxes playing the Artio support.
Right,
when you get the cripple minefield, you can't get the transformations going to get you that turtle hell shield to get you out of a bad spot. And the burst damage that Big Money had also shut down Erlang Shen because you don't even have the window to get the heal off from your 9 turns blessing because it's about like a 4-second time or cast time to get that healing off. There was just no window for it.
Yeah, that wasn't the only thing. I mean, this game, even though it was firmly in Big Money Esports' hands the whole time, it did have some back and forth. There was even the Fire Giant that got stolen away, which I think I'm being told that we do have that replay on it. So yeah, Big Money are feeling comfortable that we've got this, but ShaolinSSinS, a name you've heard plenty of times before, it wasn't going to let that one go for free, so he's able to come in and ended up getting the steal for Benedict's Cavalry. In the end, it didn't amount to much for the team, but it just showed some of the mechanics ShaolinSSinS has.
Right in between the Agni bombs. So unfortunate that they couldn't find that going. You kind of have to delay DPS when anyone is contesting. Because
right, like slow it down.
A Guan Yu damaging the same target, it deals more damage to that individual target. That's how the mechanic works. So they didn't really respect the Guan Yu damage. They thought they could out DPS him. There was a small window. They stripped it away, sure, but it just delayed the inevitable.
So maybe a small mistake from Adaption in an otherwise excellent game. I talked so much about what Privative was doing. You talked about Shadows, Snadows, however he wants to be called. But Adaption also was a nightmare for them to deal with on this Agni. Taco touched on it early on in that game, right? That this Agni outranged the Hera significantly.
Oh, yes.
Really everyone on the side of Benedict's Cavalry. They had no one that could compete with that kind of range when you're getting those max stuns out, when you're getting those Agni bombs. I think that's why you see him second in player damage in the whole game on this Agni, was because of that range.
That's true. And also, not only struggling with Sternhawk, but the Chronos onto Mystic Savage.
Exactly, yeah.
Just couldn't really get in there either because of the same reasoning. The range was not in his favor.